Welcome back everyone, Racerx here, and today I thought I would put together a quick video for you guys about the recent Stellantis news and Carlos Tavares coming to town. Of course, we know he is the CEO of Stellantis. Apparently, he was recently visiting some of the US facilities here, the production facilities, also the corporate facility. And after all of his assessment was done, he has now come out and said they need to trim costs by 30%. That is a monster number. And we already know that the FCA group, really everything under that umbrella, Dodge, Jeep, Chrysler, Ram, they're struggling. And now we've got this new news coming down, a lot of speculation about the 2025 cars that are coming down. Today, I'm going to give you both sides of the coin because everybody is really up in arms about this entire thing. Everybody's been just really bashing all of the FCA brands about the direction that they're going. I really want to give you a couple of different things in terms of perspective to just maybe take with you today. So I'm just going to weigh in on this. If you guys are brand new to the channel, please do me a big gigantic favor. Hit subscribe right over here in the corner and off we go.
T-minus 15 seconds.
Just really quick, before we get on with the video, I just want to let you guys know, after literally years of you guys asking me, I finally got some hats made. They look awesome. They are the launch edition Racerx hats. I got a little Etsy shop opened up where you can buy it. So I'll go ahead and pin a link down below so you guys can find my Etsy shop and buy one of these if you want one. And I'm really happy with the way that they came out. They are pretty limited in number, but if you guys want one, go to my Etsy shop, order one, and the ordering is really easy. Chances are, if you're watching this video at home, you are probably a performance enthusiast just like me. And the general sentiment out there is pretty much anti-FCA right now because of the move away from the Hemi, their iconic engine, and it has been that way for a really long time, in lieu of hybrid plug-ins, EVs, and twin-turbo 6-cylinders. And that is a hard pill for most purists to swallow. And I am very much a numbers guy. I always try and understand everything from both sides. Did a lot of research for this video. So the very first thing I want to do is kind of play you some clips. I actually found out about this news story from my good buddy OC Motivator's channel. So I'll play you a couple of highlights from the news story that came out about Carlos Tavares coming to town and his intentions. And then I'm going to weigh in about my actual thoughts.
CEO Carlos Tavares promised a massive cost-cutting effort, and it's looking as though it will mean considerable job loss for Metro Detroit, particularly at the Auburn Hills office tower.
In fact, I've been getting rumblings that there could be some hefty layoffs here in Auburn Hills, and Carlos Tavares came to town last week essentially telling everyone, and he did it deliberately coming here, that he's aiming at this building right here.
We have at least 2 plants in the U.S. that need a significant turnaround, at least 2.
And tells you he's sending European plant managers to come clean up the mess. It should get your attention. But then he talks about what he calls an EV-first strategy and cost-cutting to compete globally with Chinese automakers.
Well, he's going after the company with an axe right now to get cost out.
Which will no doubt send a massive shockwave through the industry.
I think that the old Chrysler Group, as we've known it in Auburn Hills, is going to be a mere shadow of itself in just a couple of years.
And John says the job loss is likely to be significant.
But they're going to take a lot. A lot. We're talking thousands of people.
The old Chrysler Group makes the most money for Stellantis, but also is the biggest cost and set of problems, which means outsourced engineering to low-cost countries like Turkey and Morocco is on the table. I asked John, I said, look, what does this mean for the domestic three? He says, oh, you mean Ford, GM, and Tesla? He said, Stellantis is no longer an American company.
There are a couple of key takeaways from those clips that I want to talk about just really briefly. The first of which is Carlos Tavares stating that he had every intention of competing with Chinese automakers. That is not going to be an easy thing to do. They don't even have the same labor laws in China like they have in the rest of the world. It's not a new business model to be able to just outsource to China and get things way cheaper so that you can have a little more profits, so that you can be competitive. There are all sorts of reasons why companies do it, but to go head to head with Chinese automakers is not going to be an easy thing to do. And yeah, he is going to have to cut costs significantly to go that route. They also said that FCA makes the most money, but also has the biggest cost and the biggest problems. We'll go into the numbers here. I found the numbers to be a little bit different, but the truth is very glaring when you actually look at it. But certainly outsourcing, and that was a theme of these clips, That is probably going to be what you see a lot of. They talked about that corporate building, right, with the big Chrysler emblem on it. I mean, that thing has been around forever. It is basically iconic with the Mopar brand. But remember, Stellantis now owns FCA, and they feel like they can do a lot of that stuff from over in Europe, and that is basically just wasted space. So that will probably be the way moving forward, is they're going to take a lot of the American jobs, a lot of the things that are done in the U.S., and they're going to go ahead and outsource those over to Europe, maybe even Southeast Asia, places like that. And that is not going to sit well with a lot of people. But there are several reasons why he's doing this. I have a whole bunch of metrics written down here, and I've always been kind of a numbers guy, as I mentioned, and it really takes somebody to explain all of the numbers to kind of get a more clear picture. I feel like most people don't explain all of the numbers, so we can really get a good idea of what is going on. And I just want to do this for transparency's sake, just so everybody is on the same page, if you will. So first off, let's look at the revenue for Stellantis as a whole for 2023. It's right there on their website. I mean, you guys can go look at this. $190 billion Stellantis made in revenue. That's how much they took in, but that's up 6% from 2022. So that's actually a pretty solid number. 18.6 billion in profit. Matter of fact, these are record numbers coming out of Stellantis, record good numbers. So that should tell you that Stellantis as a whole is a very healthy company. Now, that doesn't mean FCA is doing good things, because obviously you have Dodge, Jeep, Chrysler, Ram, but you've also got other things under that Stellantis umbrella, like Citroen, Abarth, Alfa Romeo. You've got Fiat. There's a bunch of other European companies that are mixed in that are really kind of helping that number out. They paid $6.6 billion in dividends. So if you are a shareholder and you have Stellantis stock, you're actually really happy with what Carlos Tavares is doing as a CEO. And ultimately, the job of a CEO is not to make the performance enthusiast individual happy. We actually comprise a very, very small number of the people that are actually out there, that are just driving on the roads. And that's kind of a hard thing for a lot of us to swallow, but that is the ultimate truth of it. And the numbers, the big numbers, they don't really lie. So, $6.6 billion in dividends they paid out to shareholders, record numbers coming through from Stellantis. But when you start to look a little closer at the FCA group, the numbers are not quite so solid. So the average profit per car for Stellantis vehicles is almost 12%. They're actually one of the best in the industry, and that includes the FCA brands. So that is a good thing. So it's not like they're not making money on each car. I've heard a lot of dealerships, like Dodge dealerships, tell me, dude, we cannot make any money on these cars. There's no profit in them. That's not really the story that I see when I look at the numbers. Now, for Dodge itself, back in 2013, they sold nearly 600,000 units. Okay, very solid number, but each year you'll see it decrease, and you'll see lots of red there beside it. Matter of fact, in 2020, they had that huge price jump. And guess what? They sold 267,000 units. When the price jumps 25%, you can literally look right at those numbers and you can see the massive decrease in units sold. And they continue to decline and to under 200,000 units over the last 2 years. And this year really looks bad. They're basically pacing to about 100,000 units sold for the Dodge brand. Now, we know, obviously, the Hornet, that sucker's not selling hardly at all. You've got some Durango stuff out there. A lot of people are really not sold on the new Charger. And of course, we've got the current Charger model and Challenger model, but they're 2023s, and they're basically just selling those down. So they're not, obviously, those aren't moving off the production line, and the 2025s won't come out till really close to the end of the year. I'm guessing probably at least August to September, and they may push that back a little bit. So it's not looking real good for the Dodge brand. Let's take a little closer look at some of the other brands under the FCA umbrella. For example, Jeep. Back in 2019, they sold 923,000 units, a really solid number. And then we've seen a consistent decline since then, basically every single year. And this year, they're actually pacing to about 400,000 units, well under half what they sold in 2019. Now, that is a really glaring statistic. And the Ram brand, that is just Dodge's bread and butter, pickup driving American, brand. I don't know what else to say about it. Back in 2019, 703,000 units that they sold. And once again, a consistent decline since then, down, 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 in the red, and then 250,000 units is what they're on pace to sell basically this year. If you look at everything, if it all stays the same, once again, I mean, you're looking at almost a third of what they would sell back in 2019. I mean, in 2023, they sold 540,000. That number was way down from 2019 as well. So you see that consistent decline with all of the FCA brands. And that is one of the eye-opening things that I want to talk about. And they do go on to talk about in other articles how the FCA is the top three, right? They have the top three spots for plug-in hybrids in the U.S. Matter of fact, they have 40% of the market share for plug-in hybrids with vehicles like the Cherokee 4xe, the Wrangler 4xe. But that doesn't make up a large segment of the cars being sold out there, right? There just aren't that many people buying these plug-in hybrids. So that number is a little bit skewed because you can see in the direct sales figures how everything is declining really, really bad, despite the fact that Stellantis is doing well as a company. So I want to go ahead and put on my CEO hat for just a second, because ultimately, while the CEO typically would report to, say, a board of directors, ultimately, when it's a publicly traded company, they report to the shareholders. And right now, Carlos Tavares looks like a hero to the shareholders because he is giving them money back. And a lot of times, that's just what people look for. And as a guy in his position, he's constantly looking for ways to make the company profitable and sustainable. And I get that part of it. That's the business side of it. Every CEO out there, I mean, if you're not making money for your shareholders, typically you get fired. And you may have to find creative ways to do that. And in this instance, when you've got an entity that, you purchased that you were hoping to have success with, that now is basically like, a cannonball chained to your leg as you're trying to swim around an Olympic swimming pool, some changes have to be made. And the purist in me, the enthusiast in me hates this, because I love everything that Dodge represented as a company, because it was the fun brand. The marketing was outstanding, all that kind of stuff. And I'm really hoping that they can continue to make really fun cars. And a lot of people are just way up in arms about the EVs. I, for one, as I mentioned before, I'm excited about the Hurricane offering. It's not a V8, but I think there's a lot of potential there. It may not necessarily scratch everybody's itch, so to speak. But when you see a company that's really making it tough to maintain that level of profitability, I should say, you have to make those changes. And so I kind of get where he's coming from a little bit. Now, to take the corporate building out, to outsource a lot of that stuff, I mean, massive changes are going to have to be made in order to save 30%. That is a lot. But on the other side of the coin, think about this, because everybody wants the V8s and everybody wants all the cool performance stuff, but then everybody's all pissed off about the cost of these cars. So if he's somehow able to reduce the cost, and there's going to be a multitude of ways. He mentioned they may have to outsource some of where they make these cars. They may have to just get rid of the corporate building. They may have to reduce staff in different ways. They're bringing in consultants from Europe, they talked about. And I know that's not a real popular decision, but ultimately the big reason that they're not selling a lot of cars is because the price went way up. I mean, the cars themselves are actually pretty good. I realize there's some quality control things out there that they need to fix. That's another thing that they are looking at. I've heard that in a different article, that they know that there's some quality control issues that need to be addressed. But think about this. If they're able to reduce the cost, if they reduce it 30% of manufacturing these cars, all the overhead, and they're able to pass a 20% savings along on, say, a new 2025 Charger, that might make it more appealing, because obviously we see what the sales trend is. As the cars got more expensive, they sold less and less of them. So the CEO knows something needs to happen in terms of the pricing on these cars. So you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't say, oh, look, no, we're going to keep all these American jobs. The UAW is screaming, we want more labor money, all this kind of stuff. And I get everybody's got their angle 100%. And I don't necessarily like the fact that they would have to get rid of American jobs. I don't like that at all. That sucks. But it also sucks that the prices of the cars went so crazy that nobody can afford them. So if they can pass along, say, even a 20% decrease in the cost of these cars, that makes them a lot more appealing, which in the long run would make them hopefully, sell more. And then, of course, would make the company more profitable. And then maybe we get more performance offerings. So, it's kind of comes full circle. It's sort of a catch-22. It's a very difficult position to be in. So to summarize, Carlos Tavares may not necessarily be the villain he's made out to be. He's a CEO doing CEO things. This is the same thing that every CEO across the entire world does. They try and make their company profitable. They try and do it in the smartest way that they can. And, I'm not necessarily sticking up for him because, like I said, I'm an enthusiast. I don't necessarily like the way it's going. And I don't necessarily feel like he's in touch with the American consumer. I've said that before. The same thing that works in Europe. I mean, look at a Fiat.
Brother,
The average American consumer does not want that, but Europeans love it. And I feel like there is a disconnect there, but the numbers don't lie. And, when you get with your financial people, when you're a CEO and they're looking at the balance sheets and they're looking at where they're getting their profit from and where they're not, they look at things like that the most because ultimately they want to return value to shareholders. That's the job of a CEO. And if they can do some fun things along the way, great. One of the things I loved about Tim Kuniskis as a CEO, he was the fun CEO. He was the guy that gave us stuff because he was a car guy. And I love that about him. Tavares, I think he's doing things by the numbers. And but I will say, if they're able to get the Charger out there and make it affordable by reducing costs, like I said, I hate the fact if we're going to have to reduce American jobs, if we have to lose the corporate building, all that stuff, it sucks. And as they said in the thing, in the clip, are we really an American company anymore at FCA? Maybe we're more of a European company, and there is something definitely to be said about that, and I tend to agree. It's starting to look like FCA is more of a European company rather than an American company, and that is pretty sad. My only hope is that this Charger comes out and they make it more affordable. Maybe they even give us another offering that's more on the affordable side, and then we start seeing sales come back up, and then that opens up a lot more doors for us. Both sides of the coin, like I said, it's a really tough situation, but I just wanted to kind of give you maybe a different perspective on things. So definitely gives you guys something to think about. Let me know what you think about this. I mean, what is the right thing to do? I mean, should they not reduce costs and just go out of business? Because that really is the alternative, right? I mean, you don't reduce costs and you don't sell units, you go out of business. Or do you reduce costs, try and give people a more affordable option, hope your sales get back where they need to be, and then that opens up the playbook a little bit. So you guys tell me. I'm just trying to kind of play devil's advocate a little bit, maybe to show you a few different things that I've been thinking about. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, and I'll catch you on the next one. So until then, Racerx.